Was that a foul?
Yeah, snug.
The rules of this game are really complex. I haven't quite caught on yet. Oh, hey, welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, in addition to sharing entertaining and informative photography and business-related content, I also go on missions with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. They're my hashtag nerdy photo crew. Right now, we're on Ba Prime, and Golden Hour and F2.0 are competing in some sort of sporting event. I'm still trying to figure out all the particulars of how the game is played, but it certainly looks like they're having fun and seemingly doing quite well.
Cinderella boy, out of nowhere, about to become Masters champion.
I didn't think you could hit the orb with that.
Snug, 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 snug. Snug, 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 snug.
Extra points. Nice. On this episode of the Nerdy Photographer Podcast, just in time for the NBA Finals, I talk with Hall of Fame photographer Andy Bernstein. Andy has been a pro sports photographer for more than 40 years, and in that time he has been the team photographer for several Los Angeles sports teams, including the Clippers, Kings, and Dodgers, but primarily for the Lakers. From Magic and Kareem and Showtime through Kobe and Shaq to the current King James era, Andy has been there. We talk about his photo journey and learn more about what drives him to keep producing amazing images more than 4 decades into his career. All of that after the break. Yeah, way to put the ball in there. If that's what you're supposed to do, I don't know. Hey, photographers, are you tired of using the same stale poses with your clients, resulting in stiff and unnatural photos? Consider using Let's Be Real prompts instead. Prompts are not just a list of poses. They're designed to help you create a more engaging, fun environment for your photo subjects, resulting in more natural and authentic images. With the Nerdy Photographer's Let's Be Real prompts, you'll have a unique set of prompts for couples, weddings, families, and individuals, ensuring that you never run out of ideas. Prompts are particularly helpful for clients who are nervous or self-conscious about having their picture taken. By giving them something else to focus on, they can become more relaxed and their reactions will be more authentic and less guarded. Using Let's Be Real prompts will not only help you create more fresh and dynamic images, but it will also increase your confidence and your client's confidence in you. You'll be able to handle difficult situations and subjects with ease, resulting in more satisfied clients and a stronger photography business. So start using Let's Be Real prompts from the Nerdy Photographer today and elevate your photography to the next level. Go to nerdyphotographer.com and go to our store, or click the link in the episode notes and get started creating authentic, engaging images today. Do you have your own website? Are you tired of dealing with slow loading pages and poor support from your current web hosting company? Consider switching to SiteGround, the top-rated web hosting company that provides 24/7 support and super fast hosting speeds. SiteGround's platform is built on the premium Google Cloud infrastructure, ensuring top reliability, security, and speed for your website. Their fast network and storage provide optimal site speed and a high level of redundancy, so you can trust that your website will be up and running smoothly at all times. With SiteGround's ultra-fast server setup, your pages will load 30% faster on average, giving your visitors a better user experience and improving your website's SEO. And with hosting starting from just $199 per month, it's affordable for any budget. Plus, if you're not completely satisfied, SiteGround offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't suffer with a terrible web hosting company any longer. Make the switch to SiteGround and experience top-level support, super fast hosting, and a reliable, secure platform for your website. I spent years with a web hosting company that was absolutely terrible. My site was constantly getting hacked and support was nearly impossible to get a hold of. Since switching to SiteGround, all of those problems are in the past. Just visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/SiteGround or click the link in the episode notes to get started and begin enjoying faster, more reliable web hosting today. Hello and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I am here today with Andrew Bernstein, NBA Hall of Fame photographer. Do you prefer Andrew or Andy? I meant to ask you that earlier.
Andy.
All right.
Well, yeah. I mean, now that we're friends, Casey. Andy. All right.
Conversationally, Andy, but search for you by Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There you go.
So we'd like to do a little thing called the Dice Breaker to get things started. And we'll pick a little topic of conversation. It's a 19. All right. Andy, you have 1 minute to tell me why the camera system you use is the best camera system in the world, or for your purposes as a sports photographer?
Well, I started off as a Canon guy back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then when I started doing a lot of strobe indoor photography of indoor sports, hockey, basketball, what have you, Nikon upped the game by having a 1/80th sync camera, which, before that it was either 60th or a 90th of a second. So that was just like revolutionary. So we all of us switched over, at the time to Nikon. And of course, then it became 2/50th of a second, and both camera systems adapted it. But that was the real reason. I've been a Nikon guy since probably 1982, I would say, and very happy with all of their stuff, analog and digital.
Nice. I grew up shooting with Minolta film cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyed those. But then when I got professionally into photography, I switched to Canon, and I've been with them ever since. My best photographer friend comes at me. He's a Nikon guy, and it's like there's a constant back and forth about what's going to happen, like who's going to outdo in the next iteration of cameras. What do you shoot with now?
I'm still a Nikon guy. I'm still a DSLR. I have not moved over to at all. I'm not interested in anything mirrorless. I don't want to learn a new system. I don't want to buy anything. I'm very happy with where I am. I use D6 combination, D6, D5, D4Ss. Some of our remotes are still D850s, which work great. And, very happy with all that stuff.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right, exactly.
I've recently moved into a hybrid. I have a mirrorless, and I shoot DSLR. You're absolutely correct in that the menu system and the layout of everything is confusing. I had spend a bunch of time just trying to figure out how does the camera work again, which I would say is the most frustrating thing about the camera.
Yeah, and I'm substantially older than you, so my learning curve is like underground at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm Gen X, like the end of Gen X, where we grew up with analog stuff, but also our formation of digital is. So I have an ability to adapt, but it's still hard. I mean, I'm not young. It's still hard to adapt to that stuff. Yeah. So let's get into this thing. You've been photographing the NBA for over 40 years. What inspired you to become a photographer? How did you get started in the industry?
Well, it's interesting. My dad was a psychologist and a college professor, but he thought he was an amateur everything. He thought he was an amateur filmmaker. He thought he was an amateur woodworker, which he actually was a really great woodworker. And he also thought he was a great amateur photographer, and always had a camera around. When I turned 14, my dad and I had planned to take a trip to the Western United States, all the national parks out there. Being a Brooklyn guy, the only park I had ever seen was Prospect Park. And so we planned this great trip to start off in Alberta, Canada, make our way down to the Grand Canyon, and then back up the West Coast up to Vancouver. And for my 14th birthday, bought me a Canon TL camera, basic film camera, and gave me a couple of little pointers. But I'll tell you something, man, when I got out there, that was in April on my birthday, and I fooled around with it a little bit for a couple of months. But when we got out there to the Western United States, and I started to be able to kind of see what I wanted to see with a photographic eye, and then translate it through the camera onto film, it just was so cathartic for me. It was inspirational. It was a way to express myself. It was a great bonding situation with my dad and I. And back in those days, I'm sure you might not even remember this, but when you bought Kodachrome film, you could buy it with a mailer. So a mailer, like an envelope that you would shoot the film, put it in the envelope, prepaid, put it in any post office in America. And it somehow would end up in Rochester, New York to get processed. And then also miraculously, you would end up, in your mailbox at some point, a couple of weeks later, with a yellow box of slide film.
Yeah.
And we were shooting film, and my dad's shooting film, and I'm shooting film, and putting it in these mailers. We're putting it in the most obscure post office. I mean, in the middle of like Yosemite and Yellowstone and Grand Canyon and whatever, thinking we'll never see this film again. But lo and behold, we got home and the film started coming in. Like some of the early rolls were already there. My mom had just kind of piled them up by the doorway, and we're rifling through them. And there's nobody. It just has our name on it. The house, Bernstein in the house.
Yeah.
Not knowing whose film was whose. And my dad's going through the film, and he's super proud of it. He's like, "Oh, this is the greatest shot of Old Faithful, and look at this shot of this and that, and the Grand Tetons, and then look at this amazing shot I have of Mount Rainier." And I said, "Well, hold on, Dad. Let me take a look at that roll." And I took the box, and I'm looking at the great shots of Mount Rainier, but he happens to be in some of those shots. So I said, "Pop, I love you, but that's my roll of film." And and that he very reluctantly, but I think he was kind of proud too that the kid had an eye at that point, and it was incredibly motivating to have a camera. And the joke with me, Casey, in high school was that who would come in the room first? Would it be Andy or the camera? Because I always had a camera on me, always, every moment of every day. I had a camera around my shoulder. So,
and I think that what a lot of people don't realize, especially, younger folks now, what it was like shooting film.
Yeah,
back then, is that you didn't know what you were getting. You had an idea, but you had to trust yourself.
Sure, and you had to be really careful, as the film was expensive.
Yeah.
And back in those days, you could buy film in the canister, 36 exposures, black and white or color. But a lot of people don't realize that you could buy film in bulk. You could buy a big roll of film, look like movie film almost, in a big roll. Obviously, it's light protected, and you had to open it in the dark room. And you could feed it into the canisters yourself. You could roll
your own.
Film,
yeah.
And I was doing that. And the second epiphany came when I got into the darkroom with my really good friend in high school, a guy named Andrew Feldman, who had a darkroom, little tiny darkroom in his basement in his house in Brooklyn, and took me in there and just showed me everything about processing film and of course the enlarger and projecting the image on this blank piece of paper under a yellow light, and then the magic, literally it was a magic trick to me, how the image appeared in the developer solution as you're watching it in slow motion. It just was, I can remember, this was,
it's magic. It's
50 years ago that this happened to me, and I could still remember it like it was yesterday.
I've done very little darkroom work. I did some in college. And it was like magic. It just feels like, it's appearing. And
then on top of that, you're thinking, I created this. Like I saw this in my mind's eye. It could be anything. Something, I was shooting in high school, I was shooting everything from, all the sports to the news and the feature stuff and everything. And then, just to be out there and thinking that, wow, I'm going to create something and I'm going to be able to develop it with my own two hands and see it come up. It was really just incredible. Just a wonderful feeling.
That's awesome. And how did that then, so that's high school.
Yeah.
How does that then transition into a professional career as a photographer?
Definitely a couple of stops in between. I ended up going to the University of Massachusetts for my undergrad. They didn't have any, I was a communications major, but they didn't have any photography classes per se. They didn't even have anything in photojournalism or anything, but we did have a very, very prestigious college newspaper, the UMass Daily Collegian, which came out 5 days a week. And not only it was a big campus and it was the college paper, but it was also the paper that all the townspeople surrounding Amherst would get because there was no morning paper in that area. We were, kind of sequestered out in Western Massachusetts. And the only newspaper that really of significance was the Boston Globe, which was trucked in the afternoons, the
Right.
afternoon paper. So all the townspeople would rely on us and our news, and they'd won a million awards. This newspaper to this day has been around, I think, 135 years. It's amazing. So I think in my second week of school, I just gravitated to the basement of the student union,
They're always in the
little
basement.
dungy, like dingy little like cavern of an office. And I wandered in there. This is God's honest truth that this happened. Had the camera around my shoulder, of course. I looked like I was maybe 14 years old. And I hear this yelling on the other side of the room. Hey, you with the camera. And he goes, yeah, you. He said, you want to be a photographer here? And I said, yeah. And he goes, come in here. And then go into this guy's little teeny, it wasn't an office, it was just like a little cubicle. And a little tiny little guy, looked like a fire hydrant, this guy. And he says, I'm Chris Bourne. I'm the photo editor here. We're looking for photographers. You want to shoot something? I said, yeah. He goes, okay, go out and shoot this today.
Shoot this for me today. I need somebody.
Yeah, it gives me an assignment, and it was the greatest experience, man. I basically lived in that office. In probably my fourth week of school, he made me the assistant photo editor,
Nice.
which means I'm giving out assignments to juniors and seniors. I'm picking and choosing the assignments I want to do. I was shooting, again, everything. I loved sports. We had a lot of great sports teams. I was also working for the fine art department, shooting, and made a little business out of it, shooting sororities and fraternities because they had the best parties. So I used to get in there
Get
for
in all the
free
parties.
and take pictures and then give them pictures for free. It was a blast. I loved it.
It's it's a barter system in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. And then, but that kind of reached a plateau, quite honestly, because it was really self-taught, and I wasn't getting any training in all the hardcore stuff that you really needed, even the history of photography and great photographers. And I was studying a lot of that on my own. So I made a decision to move to California, a big decision, middle of my junior year, to transfer to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, which is still is a very hardcore advertising, commercial, fashion, cars. Photojournalism is not something that they either encouraged or really taught at Art Center. But I went there anyway because I knew I'd get good training, and I was discouraged from day one. But I'm a Brooklyn guy, and you tell me I can't do something, I'm just going to double down and do it. Just to prove you wrong. But I had a couple of teachers who really saw some talent. Honestly, they saw and a lot of passion and desire to become somebody in this crazy business. And by that point, I had gravitated to sports as my concentration. And so I met a couple of Sports Illustrated photographers who took me under their wing, and I worked as their assistant, schlepping cameras and loading film and taking them to the airport. And I started working for one of my teachers in his studio. So I was learning the business side of photography that way. So it was the best of like all the worlds. I was learning on the job. I was learning in school, the stuff I needed to know, learning some business by just watching and trying to just absorb as much as I could in the studio. So it was great. And I was in LA at the right place at the right time. The early 80s was, the golden age of sports here in LA. So very, very fortunate.
Showtime. Especially for the Lakers. I mean, that's I remember growing up. I mean, I'm from Michigan originally.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson and the Lakers was like
East Lansing guy.
Yeah. I mean, and the Pistons, like the Bad Boys era Pistons, that was like, their nemesis. Other than like, there was like, the Lakers, the Bulls, and the Celtics and the Pistons were like the four teams to beat at any, for like a decade there. And it was pretty incredible. I mean, I sort of fell out of personally like a great love of basketball after that era sort of ended, because it was just, it's changed. And that's like the 40 years you've been in this business of photographing the NBA. A lot has changed. I mean, like what have you seen in the sport, players and like the way that games are even covered Like how?
Well, if you look at any of the old film video of the game, an NBA Finals game or what have you, you see baseline is completely covered with photographers. The four quadrants on the baseline. We used to like shove like 12 to 15 photographers in each quadrant, plus photographers were going up the sidelines and all kinds of stuff. Now, if you watch a game, there's literally 4 people in each quadrant, maybe 3, depends on which an arena you're in. That's changed a lot. Unfortunately, players started kind of getting hurt, and the baselines were too crowded, and the NBA made that decision a number of years ago. So that's changed. The game is still the game. It's still, people talk about how it was so physical back then in the early 80s and 90s, but it's a little bit more of an outside game now, but it's still the game. I mean, these truly are the greatest athletes, I believe, on the planet, NBA players, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to document them, quite honestly. The layers of sort of red tape that you have to go through have increased over the years. So, where I could just, in the old days, just like saunter into the locker room and do my thing. That's completely changed.
I was going to ask how much access you have at this point.
Right? I don't really have nearly the access I had. There were times when I was basically, during Showtime and the Shaq and Kobe era, and then Kobe, when he was there by himself, I had basically carte blanche in the locker room and training room. That's changed. Policies have changed. Teams have become much more protective of their inner sanctums, and personalities have changed. It's been an unfortunate byproduct, honestly, of progress. And a lot more control in those environments, which is fine. I pride myself in 36 years of truly being on the inside. I built trust over those years. People expected me to produce photography from those kind of situations. So that's changed, and I've come to peace with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think that what you mentioned, trust, is a lot of things. I think probably one of the big reasons why they have changed and made those policy changes is like, especially with digital and the way things can get out,
sure,
even out of context very quickly. Like, you have to have a little more control over the access. Whereas, I mean, I feel like, in the film era, things moved at a different pace as well. Like you could maybe talk to somebody and say like, hey, we'd rather that doesn't go out or whatever. Like, let's not.
No, absolutely. And look, I always had a sixth sense, and I was always smart enough to know that, and everyone knew, I'm not in there for a gotcha moment. I'm not in there to make somebody look bad. I'm there representing the team or the league or both. So my job is to make people look good.
Exactly.
Show how hard they work and all that. So, but you're right. If players want to control their own narrative, they, some of your star players have their own people who are given access that I used to have enjoy. So it is what it is, man. You can't fight what you can't control.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I do a lot of celebrity events, like and like photographing red carpet stuff, or in the events themselves. And there's always this sort of like weird, like, oh, there's a guy with a camera.
Yeah.
What's he trying to do? Like, they don't know me personally. Yeah. Whereas I feel like you had some time to, like, if you're working that closely with the team, to develop that rapport. But there's always this sort of like, oh, who are you? I have actually a funny story. I met Shaq once at an art show that he had procured, not procured, that's the word. Curated, yes, is the word that I'm looking for. On things that were very large and very small. And I've met very tall people before. I met like professional basketball players, whatever. But I got off of the elevator, and I was on the elevator with a bunch of like Sports Illustrated and ESPN guys, and it was like the sun had been blocked out when the door opened, and I was just like, this guy is huge, and he's looking at everybody else who he knows. He's just like pointing like, hey, Dave, glad you could make it. Hey, Greg, good to see you. And he looks at me, and he just like points a finger in my face. He goes, who are you? And I was like, he's like, man, I'm just messing with you. Come on in.
That's funny.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
One.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, one of the best. I mean, he still is. And, we have so much history together. I met Shaq before he was drafted in 92. So, we spent a lot of time together. I traveled with him multiple times throughout the world, either through the NBA or things he was doing for Reebok or other companies he represented. So we have a deep relationship.
He seems like a really good guy. So on that note, like, you've worked with a lot of high profile athletes over the years. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you have any particularly memorable experiences that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, then the number one experience, and I've had some great ones. I mean, I was embedded with the Dream Team for 7 weeks, 92, which was unbelievable. My relationship with Magic from day one, Pat Riley and all the Showtime guys, that was incredible. My relationship with Shaq, like I said, was great. Phil Jackson, wonderful, to be around and just a super incredible person, not just, on the sports side. But, the number one top dog has to be Kobe. I mean, I literally was with him from day one when he became a Laker on Media Day, 1996, to his 20-year, crowning achievement, 60-point game, dropped the mic, Mamba out. 20 years later, we did a book together, The Mamba Mentality, How I Play, which is a worldwide bestseller. But he was just such an incredible, as a subject in front of a camera, you couldn't ask for anything better. The fact that he was with one team in one city for 20 years, and that's happened to be the team and city that I worked for, was great. And he understood what my job was. There was a lot of mutual respect. He and I bonded very quickly. He was only 18 when I met him. I was 38. As he became a veteran and a champion, and of course a husband and father, I watched that progression. I was able to document that. We had many conversations about it, and I miss him terribly, like everyone does in the world. But what he left behind was, on the personal side, was a friendship that'll never be matched by anyone, and a professional relationship that I'll hold dear to my heart forever.
It's incredible building those relationships. I think no matter what you do in photography, like those sorts of friendships and relationships are, I think, what really, if you're looking to sustain a career in this business, those are the things that keep you going.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you just sort of like, it becomes a job.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, that feels that would be a pretty amazing experience. You also host your own podcast, Legends of Sport.
I do.
What inspired you to start that show?
Well, it's interesting. I always had a soft spot for the older guys. The guys when I broke in who were well on their way, of veterans and about to retire, and it always struck me. And a couple of partners and I formed this company called Legends of Sport because we wanted to be able to document, perpetuate, amplify, bring the spotlight back to legendary athletes primarily, but also moments. Kirk Gibson's home run is a legend of sport. Teams, the 69 Mets, who I grew up with, they're a legendary team. They're legends of sport. They're legendary venues, Wimbledon, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Churchill Downs, what have you. And then there are legendary personalities. I mean, you look at people like Sylvester Stallone and Rocky, or even Robert Redford, or super fans like Jack Nicholson or George Lopez or Spike Lee, people like that. So those are the 5 spokes of Legends of Sport, which was born about 8 years ago. And I was given the opportunity by the late Norm Pattis, who was a great friend who owned Podcast One the Podcast One network after building Westwood One Radio to a huge, gigantic syndicated radio network. Norm offered me to launch the Legends of Sport platform as a podcast on his podcast network. So that happened we're in season 6, so that happened about almost 7 years ago. And I've been doing the podcast religiously every week for now 6 years. We just finished. I think we just did our 200th interview, and about to finish season 6 in about a month. It's been an unbelievable experience for me to be able to talk to people, first of all, that I've had long-time relationships with, but you never really get a chance to sit down and have a long-form conversation.
Yeah, actually talk.
Yeah. And then I always like to know, like, how those people started, like your first question. Excuse me. How did things start for you? Who helped you? Who mentored you? And, where did that fire get lit? And everybody's got a story. Everybody has a person who believed in them, who pushed them. Could be a parent, a coach, a priest. It could be, a sibling. Could be anybody. And I just love those stories. And as we've gotten deeper into it, and we've tackled some pretty formidable issues, social justice, mental health, pay equity. A lot of the issues that are out there in the world, but also in sports, we have really taken upon ourselves to get educated about it, to learn about it, to bring people on who can talk about those issues. So that's super important to me, to have a platform that can really shed some light on some very, very important things. And everybody has a lesson that that their journey has taught, me and everyone else. And I just love it. I mean, I don't see any time when I will not enjoy doing an interview, whether I know the person ahead of time or not. And sometimes it's more fun to not know the person because you get to learn. I've interviewed many authors, for example, who I don't know, but I love the books. I love reading the books. I love studying them. My producer and I and our researcher sit down and we hammer into it, and that's part of the process. And I totally love that.
You're giving yourself such a rich history to draw from. Like, there's so many things that you can get, and as you're saying, not shying away from difficult topics as well. There's just, I mean, the sports fan in me just kind of like is very jealous of being able to have those conversations, just being able to sit down and like, oh, let's talk about this and like really get into it. And not just I feel like the modern era has allowed us to both access things that are deep dives into topics that we love, but there's also, like, because there's a lot of sort of prima facie dealing with a lot of things as well. Like you have to, if you want to dig deep, you can, and you can find those things. And like, yeah, I'm just jealous. Just listening to you talk about it makes me jealous of being able to.
No, I hear you. Look, I'll give you an example, Casey. I'm in the NBA bubble for 53 days. Early into my quarantine period, before I was able to even work down there, the NBA, it was right after the George Floyd murder, and then the Jacob Blake murder happened, and Breonna Taylor's murder. And there was a lot going on in the world. We obviously were in COVID, but, a lot of reaction and, about the police and social justice and all that. And the NBA players shut down the league. I don't know if you remember this, but they refused to play. They said that, look, we have a voice and we want to be heard and have a platform. And here I am in quarantine in my room, little tiny hotel room in the middle of Disney World, thinking, you know what, I need to educate myself on this. I need to understand what's going on. I've worked around African-American athletes my entire career, yet I don't really know the experience of what Black Lives Matter means, to them.
Right.
So I sought out a great friend. And again, keep in mind, I'm on in quarantine. My dear friend Mark Spears, who is an incredible writer, you guys, a lot of people know him from his work on ESPN. And Mark and I had some conversations. He recommended some books, some movies to see. I reached out to Etan Thomas, who's a former NBA player who I saw on TV as an expert on social justice in the sports world. He was on MSNBC. I DM'd him. We had a conversation. And I just sort of took it upon myself to really, if I was going to have a conversation about social justice and Black Lives Matter, I needed to know what I was talking about.
Right.
And it really was eye-opening. And I had Mark on the podcast. I had Tan. I had a few other people. And I think we did a good job. I think we raised some issues and shed some light on what was really going on, where I was. I'm in the bubble when this is happening. So looking back, I'm very proud of that, honestly. And I feel like I can now have an educated conversation with anybody about that period of time and what the players were about and what we're all trying to fight for.
Right. It's for the fans or people who are on the outside. There are some people who, see how they see it, how they perceive what's going on, or what they think that it's about. But to be able to peel back the curtain a little bit and say, no, this is what's really going on.
Yeah,
is supremely important, especially given the current temperature of things. It's better knowledge is power, and
yeah. And look, I was very proud to be part of an organization, the NBA, who supported the players' efforts and really kind of left it up to the players to decide: are they going to continue to play? Are they going to not play and make a statement that way, or are they going to seek the help and guidance that they needed? And Michael Jordan, who's obviously a legend himself, but he helped to sort of broker that understanding between the players and the league and whether or not they should go on. And it was really a monumental time in our history.
Yeah, it was, across different sports, I think it was handled differently. I thought the NBA actually handled it by giving it to the players. I think handled it better than most.
Yeah, yes, I think the NBA, as they do many times, led the way. When the NBA was the first league to shut down in March 2020, when COVID really started to become a huge issue.
Yeah.
And regardless of what was coming out of the White House at that time, the NBA had experts who really said, look, this is serious. And we're going to have to make a decision here. And what you saw was a domino effect, because the NBA shut down. Then, of course, baseball and hockey and everybody else shut down. And then the NBA led the way in starting play again under the gigantic COVID umbrella and figuring out a way to do it. And they did. They pulled it off. Still don't know how they did it, honestly. But
figuring out testing and everything like that.
Yeah.
That whole system that they had, that spread across other sports.
Yeah.
For how to keep people safe, basically. Very impressive. But on that note, you don't just photograph basketball. You've also photographed hockey. You mentioned the Kings, other sports. Is there a gear shift mentally between photographing basketball and other sports?
No, I gotta say, Casey, I have not changed my approach, my preparation, my mindset since really when I became a professional back in late 70s, early 80s. I have a game. You and I talking today. I have a game tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm already in my pregame sort of mindset. I try to reduce distractions. I'm super happy to talk to you, but after our conversation, I go into game mode. I know what I have to do. I already texted my crew, expecting them to be at the arena at a certain time. So every, yes, every sport, every assignment is different. I could be doing, a commercial assignment tomorrow, and that's a different sort of preparation, and but it's not a different mindset.
Right.
I never sort of mail it in. I don't take anything for granted. That includes my equipment. We check, recheck. We have backups. We have all kinds of stuff that makes sure that we can produce the work that I expect from myself, but also my clients expect. But it is fun. It's fun to go to a hockey game one night, and hockey's deep in my blood from growing up with hockey in New York. And I actually have been shooting hockey longer than any other sport. It was something I started shooting in college. The Kings were gracious enough to let me do some college project at Art Center, and they're my longest client. The Kings. I've been with the Kings 40. I think it's now 43 years. The NBA been with them for 42. So there's a reason.
You were there when Gretzky showed up.
Yeah, I was, and that was monumental. It was super historic, and I'm proud to be a part of that.
It was huge. That was a major shift. Again, being from Michigan, hockey, Red Wings.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I grew up with the original six.
Yeah.
I used to love when the Red Wings came in with those red uniforms and Gordie Howe and all those guys.
I remember my wife and I were watching a Red Wings game when we were at my parents' house or something, and like people started throwing the octopus.
Yeah,
on the ice, and she was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Okay, there's Greek Town, which is right next to Joe Louis Arena." Trying to explain that entire there's a lot of weird traditions.
A lot of weird stuff. Yeah.
It's fun though. Yeah, but that was when Gretzky went to LA. That was a huge deal.
Yep.
Speaking of huge deals, you're part of the NBA Hall of Fame.
I am. It's the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, named after Dr. Naismith himself, who founded the sport. I was incredibly honored, humbled, so incredibly grateful when I was told that I was nominated to receive the Gowdy Award, which is the highest honor you can receive as a media member, short of actual enshrinement, which only the players, coaches, teams are eligible for. Only a second photographer honored with the Gowdy Award. It was pretty amazing to be standing up there and giving a speech in front of David Stern and all the people that I had worked for and with for decades. But I have to say one of the great things that happened to me that night was Adam Silver, the current commissioner, gave myself and a couple of others who were being enshrined that night, who were NBA employees or very attached to the NBA league itself. He gave us a private cocktail party reception, and he took me aside. And keep in mind, this is 2018, so I'm 37, 38 years in at this point. And he said, "Andy, he's super proud of you. Congratulations. Thank you." And he says, "But I have a feeling that your best pictures are in front of you." And when your boss says that to you, it's a challenge, but it's so affirming. It's like, wow, okay, they're going to want me around forever. That's
right. Well, it's a good job security feeling, but it's also like that you, as an artist, are still growing and constantly. And we're all I think it's one of those things that a lot of photographers can take heed of, is that you don't have to produce the same photo that you did every time. It's you can grow as an artist and keep learning. And as you mentioned, talking about your journey from Brooklyn to California, I want to go out there. It's not photojournalism that I'm doing, but you're learning new techniques. You're learning new, acquiring new technical knowledge and applying that to the stuff that you're going to do. And I think that to always be growing, and that I think, that's pretty amazing. First of all, the feedback to get, and just especially consider I don't know, the eras of the NBA that you've already worked through at this point, that are pretty incredible. And it's sort
Oh,
of,
for sure. Yeah, every era has its own sort of personality.
yeah,
I came in at sort of the end of the Kareem Dr. J era, right? I mean, they were still playing. Dr. J won his own one and only championship in '83, which was really the first finals I covered both cities, and Kareem was obviously still playing and playing at a high level, but he was, towards the end of his career. So then, of course, you're in with Showtime and all those guys and Isaiah Thomas and the Bad Boys and then Michael Jordan shows up and that whole era. And then, all of a sudden I'm in the Shaq era and Shaq and Kobe, and Shaq goes off and Kobe keeps going, wins two championships without him. And then this other guy, LeBron, shows up, and then it's his era, and Steph Curry. And now, I feel like we're coming out of that. Of course, both of those teams are, both those players are still incredibly relevant. But, you're seeing the younger guys. You're seeing the Jason Tatums and Devin Bookers, and that's going to be the new era.
There's a changing of the guard, so to speak.
It's beautiful.
It's always kind of wonderful and to see things evolve, which is always kind of why I don't know, I see it all the time, like the debates, like who's the greatest of all time? Is it LeBron or Jordan or Kobe or whatever? And I'm like, you have to I don't know. I can say that they're all incredible because they're also a product of the era that they're playing in, and you can't just strict numbers go by they had X number of, this had 0.5 more assists per game in this particular playoff series. It's come on, let's just say they're all really amazing and
for
celebrate
sure. That's why talk radio, sports talk radio exists. That's where there, so many platforms where people can have these conversations. The big difference between those platforms and what we do at Legends of Sport is we're not really about last night's game, quite honestly, or last night's score, but we will look backwards in order to look forward. So if, for example, Klay Thompson has a historic night like he did, early in the series, we can look back at who else had historic 3-point nights, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, guys like that, and sort of do then and now a comparison. But if you're looking for the score of last night's game or the box score, there's millions of places, other places you could go. We pride ourselves in really illuminating historic and legendary moments, teams, personalities, and of course athletes.
Right. And it's trying to contextualize things like Kobe dropping 60 points versus what it was like for Wilt to score 100 is they're two different things. They're completely different.
Totally.
And I don't know, every time you say Kareem, I always think tell your dad to try dragging Lanier and Walton up and down the court every night.
I know. Right.
Amazing. And there's so much to look back at and celebrate and enjoy and then look forward to.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm always looking forward to the next game. I'm traveling much, much less than I used to, lot less wear and tear on my old body. I want to stay relevant. I want to stay at the top of my game. And the NBA has been great about that. They've allowed me to do less games at home, very, very minimal travel. But they know they can depend on me, as Magic used to say, when it's money time, which is now, is the playoffs. And, I pride myself in being able to perform at the highest level. And when I get to the point where that's not happening, then the decision will have to be made. I'm a long way away from that.
Awesome. So as we sort of close this up, what advice would you have for someone who's an aspiring sports photographer who's thinking about entering into this world that you've been a part of for a long time?
Yeah, I'll go back to what we talked about earlier about being in high school. and always having a camera around my neck, on my shoulder. Um, just always shoot. Just shoot. And when you're sick of shooting, keep shooting more, because that's the only way you're going to get better. And as an aspiring sports photographer, I made it my business when I was building, my portfolio, which then was, of course, a visual, tangible thing. It wasn't a website, or whatever. That I needed to shoot all different kinds of sports. I needed to go out of my comfort zone from the 3, 4, 5 sports that I was really comfortable doing: hockey, football, baseball, basketball, and I was shooting all kinds of obscure sports. I never shot soccer. I never shot some women's sports. I never shot gymnastics, water polo. I mean, I could name a million sports. And that just helped me to keep developing my eye. It helped me to learn how to be in the right position at the right, in the right moment. I picked the brain of so many. I can't even list the number of photographers that I admired and wanted to be like. Everyone from Neil Leifert to Walter Yost to the photographers that I worked around, who had been veterans. Just as news photographers and sports photographers, people got sick of me asking questions. But Michael Jordan tells that famous story about how Kobe would pick his brain all the time. And here's Kobe Bryant, an incredible athlete in his own right, but he needs to know from the source, what made him tick. So all that helped me. And I would encourage anybody, including myself, if there's somebody whose work that you admire, reach out. It's so easy now. Back in the day when you had to figure out how to contact somebody, write them a letter or whatever. There's no email. There was no DM. There's no nothing. Now you go to my ADB Photo Inc. Instagram, you DM me, boom, I get right back to you.
Yeah, the ability. I mean, even as somebody who hosts a podcast, it's become so much easier to just reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, I'd really love to talk to you," and just is that a possibility? And the answers are generally, that sounds great. That sounds like a good time. Do you enjoy listening to your entertainment? Why am I asking? You're doing it right now. You must. With Audible, you can enjoy all of your audio entertainment in one place. From bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, mysteries and thrillers, motivation, wellness, business, and more. Audible has an incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre. But that's not all. Audible also offers exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, and exciting new voices in audio, plus thousands of podcasts from popular favorites to exclusive new series. And with the Audible app, it's easy to listen anytime, anywhere, whether you're out taking photographs of landscapes, editing pictures in your studio, or going on intergalactic adventures with the Nerdy Photo Crew. You can listen to your favorite audiobooks and podcasts wherever you want. Right now, I'm going through Frank Herbert's Dune Saga once again. The world of these books is so rich and deep with history, I come back over and over and over. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. So what are you waiting for? Go to audibletrial.com/nerdyphoto and sign up for Audible today and discover your next favorite listen. That's audibletrial.com/nerdyphoto. Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death. Andy, did you know how long a slinky, if you stretched a slinky out, do you have any idea how long it would be?
I would say slinky's got to be at least 20 feet long.
82 feet long.
Get out of here. Really? I used to love having a slinky.
You go up and down the stairs.
80 feet long? Is that what you said?
82 feet.
82 feet. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you mean if you stretched it out and it was straight?
Yep.
Right? Not just still coiled, but straight.
Straight.
That's amazing.
Who
do you think thought that up? I mean, that's
no idea. I feel like somebody made a spring at some point and was really lightweight and dropped it and was like, wait, kids will love this. It moves on its own. Look at it go up and down. It goes down the stairs.
But see, that's a testament to something that's tactile. It's not on a screen. You don't have to put a headset on.
Right.
It's like you take this thing, you put the top of the stairs, and you watch it walked out.
Yeah.
That's how it worked.
Or a hula hoop. Like all that stuff, like all those things that were just like you put your hands on this thing, which is always one of the reasons I always say like I love print photos.
For sure.
You can see it. You just look at it. It's not just like coming off of a screen.
Well, that's a whole other conversation. But the fact that I used to create something that I could literally hold in my hand. The film, a negative, a print, and say I created this. This is something tangible I can hold on to. I can look through it. I can look at it. Now I'm creating ones and zeros.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who could literally hold up ones and zeros and say I created that.
I created this code. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Andy,
Right.
I really want to thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you and getting to know you a little bit. Where can people find you? What do you have? Is there?
Sure.
How do people find you?
Well, first and foremost, you can go to Instagram, which a lot of people like to be the first stop. So my personal Instagram is ADB Photo Inc. at ADB Photo Inc. And my website is ADB Photo Inc. As well. And then you can also check out our Legends of Sport platform, which we do a lot of cross-platforming. So it's at Legends of Sport on Instagram, legendsofsport.net. If you want to go to the website, and that has everything Legends of Sport on it, has the link to all the podcast episodes, which is very simple. Legends of Sport, you get it on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. And we have a YouTube channel, Legends of Sport, which I think starting in season 3, we started doing most of our interviews on video as well. So you can see either the full video version, or you can see highlights, or reels, or what have you. TikTok as well. And then I'm planning a workshop, a photo workshop that is kind of a master class, but has some live aspects to it, live elements. And that's called Beyond the Lens. We're promoting that. Still working on getting that launched, but it's called. You can find it at beyondthelens.live, and there are tabs to find out more about it and also to sign up. So hopefully people will check that out.
People should go check that out. And if you're looking for those links, you can find them in the episode notes. I'm going to include all of those links to everything that Andy just mentioned.
Awesome.
Andy, thank you so much again. You're welcome to come back anytime you want.
Thanks, Casey. I appreciate a great conversation. And again, just if you're an aspiring photographer, no matter what genre of photography that you love, just keep doing it and find somebody who does it that you want to be like them. Seek them out, and I will guarantee you 90% of the time that person will respond to you, because we all want to pay it forward. We all want the next generation to inherit a craft that we're all proud of. And that's part of my mission. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing the workshop, because I want to get some Mamba mentality kind of wisdom out there, but I also want to help the craft move forward.
Welcome back, everybody. That was a great conversation with Andy Bernstein. Hopefully I can lure him back onto the show for some more stories sometime in the future. In the meantime, you can find all of Andy's links in the episode notes. While you're there, be sure to check out all of the ways you can support the Nerdy Photographer podcast. There are great free ways to lend a hand, and among those are following us on social media. You can follow the Nerdy Photographer at The Nerdy Photo on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. That's at The Nerdy Photo. You can also head over to our contact page and leave us a voice message and tell us how you felt about this or any other episode, or you can even give us a suggestion for a topic for a future episode. It's like interactive podcasting. Wave of the future. The kids are going to love it. So, Golden, F 2.0, how'd you do in the tournament?
Snug!
Pain is temporary. Chick stick scars. Glory lasts forever.
Hey, don't let being a champion go to your head. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating You better listen.